and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. North Korea just launched another missile, and we're going to have a live report on what happened and what it means. Also, Hollywood is taking over tonight. Actor Richard Dreyfuss sent us an email offering to provide a televised civics lesson on this show. He joins us in just a minute. Also talk to Fabio, who says anti-police attitudes in California are wrecking that state. But first tonight, Attorney General Jeff Sessions went to Suffolk County, New York today, out on Long Island, where he vowed to bring the full force of federal law enforcement down on the gang MS-13.
MS-13 motto is kill, rape, and control. We're seeing more drugs, more deaths. I mean, this is an assault on law and safety, and we're not going to let it happen. They enrich themselves by peddling poison in our communities, trafficking children for prostitution, inflicting horrific violence in our neighborhoods. They recruit in our high schools and our middle schools and even our elementary schools. We have proof of that. Our nation is suffering from an unprecedented epidemic of heroin and opioid abuse, often trafficked by the cartels and these gangs. I have a message for the gangs that target our young people. We are targeting you.
Well, you might think that stopping a murderous gang is a goal that can unite people, that everyone would agree with, but apparently not. Dozens of people protested Jeff Sessions' visit today, attacking him for linking MS-13's rise to illegal immigration. Patrick Young was one of the protesters today. He's an immigration attorney and a program director at the Central American Refugee Center, and he joins us tonight. Patrick, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So the Attorney General goes to Long Island today and says we're going to crack down on MS-13, which nobody disagrees is a scourge. This is the press release you guys sent out in response. Quote, Long Islanders, and now I'm quoting, need to resist the rhetoric of criminalization coming down from Washington. Why is it bad to criminalize MS-13?
Look, you don't need to lecture me on the dangers of MS-13. 15 years ago, I was offered police protection because I'm an outspoken opponent of MS.
Okay.
But the way that you go after MS is to work with the police, to have the police and the community work together. And that equation doesn't work if you bring ICE into it. When you bring ICE in, you just divide the community and you drive the people who are really the eyes and ears of the police underground. You turn them into antagonists. And that's not something that's safe for any of us.
Okay.
Two doors down from me a few months ago, a house was tagged with MS-13. I don't know if they were looking for me or if they were going after my neighbors. But we need to be able to find MS, and we can only do it if the community trusts the police, and they won't if Jeff Sessions has his way.
Okay, let me just state the obvious, which is there's no data to back up that claim, which is universal among pro-immigration activists. But let me also applaud you for being against MS-13. Good for you. But here's what I don't understand. Pretending that immigration has nothing to do with the rise of the gang is false. It does. A FOIA suit recently brought federal numbers to light that show that of the 4,000 MS-13 members so far arrested in this country, 92% were here illegally. 16% had been caught coming in at least 2 times. So there is a direct connection between people coming illegally and the rise of this gang. Why not just admit that?
The people being targeted by MS are largely immigrants from the same communities that MS lives in. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to blame the victims and re-victimize them. When we want immigrants to come forward and speak to the police, if they're hearing from political leaders that they themselves are suspected of being involved in MS, they're not going to come forward.
Okay. Again, we don't know that. That's a political point that you're making.
Know
it's
that.
not. We don't actually. We don't because you're about the 8th.
No, you don't have immigrants on your program, but I talk to immigrants every single day.
You're about the 8th person on this show to make that claim. Look. Criminology is a variety of social science. It's studied extensively. There's not one study that proves what you just said. It sounds like it may be right. It serves your political purpose, but you don't know that, so I'm not going to claim it.
We worked closely with the Nassau County Police Department for 20 years around MS. In fact, we had 2 police officers intern with us to learn about the community. We know what the best policing practices are. Nassau County has MS, but Nassau County also has an extremely low crime rate because Nassau County has 2 decades of history under Democrats and Republicans of working with the immigrant community.
Obviously, we don't know the best way to fight MS-13, or it wouldn't be growing across the country, and it is. And so I'm just making an obvious point. I'm not pretending to be a cop here, unlike you. I'm just saying that if 92% of the people apprehended...
I'm talking about being somebody who listens to the immigrant community and also talks to the police.
But there are many constituencies here, and the, quote, immigrant community is not the only one. There's also the rest of us. And if 92% of the people arrested as MS-13 members are here illegally, you can't pretend it's got nothing to do with illegal immigration. Like, why? I know it's inconvenient for you.
But the rest of us will be safer if we have the immigrant community enlisted in the struggle against MS-13.
Okay, but no one is... Look, I'm not saying that you don't want people affected by MS-13 to come forward. I'm merely saying these guys are here in the first place, 92% of them, because we didn't enforce our immigration laws. And you just don't want to admit that because you disagree with our immigration laws. And that doesn't help anybody if we don't tell the truth.
I disagree with that because it's not the truth. If you go and take one characteristic of MS-13 and then ignore the fact that we have many native-born people in the United States who are involved in criminality, you're stigmatizing a particular group. We don't blame all Fox News hosts for the sins of a few.
Okay, look, that's a ludicrous point. I am not blaming... Slow down. I'm not blaming all immigrants. I'm merely saying we wouldn't have this problem in the first place if these people weren't here. They don't have a right to be here. They're here illegally. And in this case, in the case of MS-13, they're murdering people.
The victims of MS-13 who brought this to the attention of so many people, the killings 2 weeks ago, 4 people, they were all immigrants.
Really? So no, actually, that's not true. The bodies were found by the side of the road by a motorist.
In with MS-13.
But I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Unlike you, I'm not blinded by my ideology to the point where I can't admit obvious truths. And the most obvious is this is an immigration-based problem. It doesn't mean that they're all MS-13.
It's not an immigration-based problem because otherwise we wouldn't have the Bloods and the Crips. There are plenty of American-born people who are involved in gangs.
Right. You didn't take logic in school, I see.
I was a philosophy major, and I did take logic in school.
Okay, well, obviously you slept through, because it's not a matter of saying... Okay. I don't want to debate your college transcript here. Look, I'm only saying the obvious, and I'm not going to say it again, but I just want to make the point that I'm sure all of our viewers are thinking right now, which is, hey, this guy claims to want to help immigrants. And yet MS-13 preys primarily upon immigrants. And yet this guy is standing in the way of federal efforts
which is why it's important to enlist the immigrants in the struggle against MS-13 and not to marginalize them and not to sow divisions.
Okay, then let me ask you an obvious fact-based question. So the Obama administration has been in power for the last 8 years. Trump's been in for 99 days. MS-13 during that 8-year period grew. The Obama administration didn't stigmatize illegal immigrants. They welcomed illegal immigrants. Then why, under Obama, did MS-13 continue to grow, if your theory is correct?
Why under Obama? You can talk to Obama about that. I'm a local person who lives in a community that's mixed with immigrants and non-immigrants, and I work in 2 communities that are similar.
You're not tracking the logic here. It's not about Obama. The point is, we haven't been, as you put it, stigmatizing illegal immigrants from Washington for 8 years. And yet, during that time, MS-13 has continued to grow. By your logic, the opposite would be true.
By my logic, we need to work together in order to work against MS-13, and we don't make progress against MS-13 if communities are divided.
I wonder, and this is my final question because I feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall, but do you think there comes a point
Don't hurt yourself.
You're so committed, it is hurting me, actually, when you're so committed to a particular worldview that you become impervious to facts. And
that's what I'm seeing.
Is that a religion for you at that point?
That's what you're in love with right now.
What do you mean in love with? I'm giving you a number that is real.
The cause of gangs is immigration, and we know the cause of gangs is not immigration because there are plenty of non-immigrants who are in gangs. MS happens to be one gang. It happens to be a very violent gang, but it is one gang.
All right. I'm never going to convince you, Patrick, but I appreciate your coming on anyway.
Thanks very much.
So what's the next step? Simply talking about MS-13 won't beat them. Tim Sini is police commissioner for Suffolk County on Long Island, and he joins us tonight. Tim, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
Why has MS-13 grown so much in the last 10 years?
There's likely a variety of factors. There's no question that MS-13 preys on the immigrant community. In fact, they in particular prey on unaccompanied children who come to this country illegally and then are placed in our communities. And the Suffolk County Police Department, working in collaboration with our federal partners, is dedicated to decimating this gang.
Are the feds going to help you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're confident the Attorney General's announcement today means progress in the fight against MS-13?
Whenever you have the top law enforcement official in the country come to your community and commit to eradicating a dangerous gang such as MS-13 and then ask local officials, how can we help? That's a good day for your community. We had a very productive discussion today about law enforcement issues, about how the federal government can further assist us in our mission of eradicating MS-13. And several specific requests were discussed, several specific topics were discussed. It was a great meeting. We had the heads of all the local departments in the room. We had our federal partners there, and of course, the Attorney General and his team.
Right. So I don't know how free you are to be totally candid since we're on TV and you're still holding office, but it seems like politics is playing a pretty ugly role in all this. When you have protesters by the side of the road accusing the federal government of cracking down on all immigrants when they're going after one of the most dangerous criminal gangs in the country, does that distort your ability to be able to address this as a criminal matter?
Tucker, there's no question that politics, unfortunately, creeps into the discussion of law enforcement, and I benefit from the position of being police commissioner. I don't have to deal in politics. That's a good thing for me. I just have to focus on the mission, get the job done. Many of those protesters out there were people who I work with on a daily basis. We have different perspectives about certain things, obviously, but these are people who we work with, and the message I sent to them was, look, this is the Attorney General of the United States. He's coming to our community to ask how the federal government can assist in eradicating MS-13 from our community. And we had a very productive session today with all of our law enforcement partners, and I really do believe that something good is going to come out of that meeting.
Does the government of El Salvador play any role in this? I think about half of the arrested MS-13 members come from that country. It started there. Apparently, it's controlled, at least in part, from El Salvador. What's the government's role in that?
No question. And this is an important piece. And this is why local law enforcement officials throughout the country need to be working with their federal law enforcement partners. We need to fight this battle on all fronts. That includes dealing with certain issues in foreign countries. And obviously, a local police department, we don't have the jurisdiction or resources to do that. So we're going to be working with assets throughout the world to tackle this issue and to deal with it both outside this country and inside this country. And it's going to take all hands on deck. It's going to take a multifaceted approach, and it's going to take a lot of resources, which is why today's meeting was so promising, because we talked very specifically about what type of resources, and a lot of folks had good suggestions, and we had a good discussion.
Well, good. Because when 92% of those arrested are from a foreign country and foreign citizens, it's a foreign threat, I would say. Mr. Commissioner, Commissioner Singh, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you very much.
This is a Fox News alert. Just a short time ago, North Korea test-fired another ballistic missile. For more on this increasingly tense and in some ways confusing situation, we go to Trace Gallagher.
Hi, Tucker. This was another KN-17 Scud, North Korea's newest ballistic missile. It's a liquid fuel missile that's supposed to be medium range, but truth is no one knows how far it'll go because there has never been a successful launch. It's the third time this month North Korea has fired a KN-17. The farthest one traveled about 22 miles into the Sea of Japan. Today's never made it off the peninsula. Minutes ago, President Trump tweeted, quoting, "North Korea disrespected the wishes of China and its highly respected president when it launched, though unsuccessfully, a missile. Bad." The White House is continuing to consult with China, which is an ally of North Korea, and many experts say China is the key to getting Kim Jong-un to stop provoking the West. The Pentagon is concerned that in due time, the North will build a long-range missile able to hit the U.S. coastline. The immediate concern is that Kim the Younger will attack South Korea or Japan. Today, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson told the UN Security Council that time is running out, and he called for the global community to enforce existing sanctions against the North and to add stricter new sanctions against the North. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks a lot. Up next, after our debate on Tuesday with a Santa Clara City councilman, actor Richard Dreyfuss sent us an email offering to school us on civics. Could you refuse that offer? We couldn't. Richard Dreyfuss joins us next live. Also, tomorrow is President Trump's 100th day in office. How has he measured up? We'll talk it over with the great Ed Henry. Stay tuned. So last Tuesday, we had on Santa Clara County Councilman David Cortese to debate the legality of President Trump's executive order concerning sanctuary cities. It was an energetic debate. I'd like you to answer my question, which is a very simple one. There's a precedent being set here by a federal judge that states do not have to comply with federal law and can't be punished for not doing so. That is a major departure from where we've been for my whole lifetime. Do you think that the Obama administration was right to threaten a withholding of federal funds from states that didn't comply with its transgender bathroom laws? That's orders. That's a really simple question.
I'm telling you that this is the first president of the United States that's threatened with an executive order to withhold, in our case, up to $1.7 billion from us. It's unconstitutional for him to try to wield that kind of power. The federal court agreed with us today.
That's not true. You're never quite sure who's watching when you do a segment like that. But in that case, one person who was Richard Dreyfuss, the Oscar winner from Jaws and scores of other movies. I was actually in bed doing email, and I got one from him. And I thought, that can't really be Richard Dreyfuss, but it actually was. He said, I want to come on, and he wrote this, quote, I would be happy to come on your show and explain this rudimentary illustration of the basic checks and balances to you and your audience. That sounded great. We are always happy to promote civic knowledge on this show. We're happy to have Richard Dreyfuss with us tonight. Richard Dreyfuss, thanks for joining us.
How you doing?
So I'm doing great. So I know you spent time at Oxford studying this, civics. I know you know a lot about the Constitution. I don't doubt that. I know you're smart. But where in the Constitution does it say states can do whatever they want in contravention of federal law and the rest of us have to be quiet and pay for it anyway?
It doesn't say that. It only simply says that the monies attached to things that the executive might want are the province of the Congress, and that what was said in the judge's ruling was that the executive didn't have the power to withhold finances because that's the province of the Congress, and that's all I wanted to clarify, because it is, as you say, a very rudimentary thing. And we should all know a hell of a lot more than that. And I want to mention, because I know I'm limited to 6 minutes, I want to mention one thing. The next night, you were talking about the speakers on university campuses.
Yeah.
And I am totally, incontrovertibly on your side about this. I think that any intrusion into the freedom of speech is an intrusion into freedom of speech. And when one of the presidents of one of the colleges said, this is a school, not a battlefield, I said, no, it is a battlefield of ideas, and we must have dissenting opinions on campuses, and I think it's political correctness taken to a nightmarish point of view.
Well, amen, and I agree with you, and maybe because we're both over 30. Unfortunately, most people under 30 don't seem to agree with us at all, and they believe in something called hate speech, which is somehow banned because they don't know what the Constitution says. But I want to get back to the first point really quick. I mean, this is a legal debate, and this is probably not the best forum for it. But let me just ask you a political question. I know for certain that this kind of thing has been threatened by many presidents before because I've seen it. And administrations often get states to do what they want them to do by threatening to withhold money. This happened less than a year ago in May of 2016 when the Obama administration threatened to withhold federal funds from North Carolina over the famous bathroom controversy. I don't remember any federal judge saying, well, you're not allowed to do that. Why?
Well, I have to beg off part of this discussion because I have withdrawn from partisan politics. I am a constitutionalist who believes that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights must be central and the parties must be peripheral. And I think that what's most important for me is what you just mentioned haphazardly. We're over 30. Civics has not been taught in the American public school system since 1970. And that means that everyone in Congress never studied the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, as you and I might have. And that is a critical flaw because It's why we were admired and respected for so long. It gives us our national identity. It tells the world who we are and why we are who we are. And without a frame that gives us the values that stand behind the Bill of Rights, we're just floating in air. And our sectors of society are not connected.
Well,
and
that's
why
right.
Teaching civics, and I'm so glad you said that, because what's really important, Tucker, is that the assumptions of the left and the right are all skewed wrong. We have to find areas of agreement and areas that we share. And we do share the notion that education accomplishes certain things. One, it turns students into citizens.
Right.
And two, it teaches students how to run the country before it's their turn to run the country. And three, it teaches the values of this nation. People come from all over the world or are born into this nation without the values that we have here. That's why they came here, to get them. And what are they? You can put them in opportunity, rise by merit, and mobility and freedom. That's what we sell. And if you don't want that, you've chosen the wrong place. And you don't get a pass by being born here. You have to learn it. Even the 10 Commandments are not known at birth. You must learn them. And we must learn our values. And if we don't, we are fatally wounding ourselves. We will not have any way to really combat the ideas behind ISIS because we won't know our own. And we have to.
So typically I interrupt our guests and I expected to debate you, but that was, I agree with every single word of that. And I just want to say thank you very much for emailing me late night and for coming on to say that, because I think it's important. And I hope that people watch.
Can I give you one idea? Can I give you one idea?
Give me one quick idea.
For everybody. Okay. Everyone knows the preamble to the Constitution, or should, and the preamble is in fact the mandate of America. And I say, if every parent and teacher and school superintendent and public political commentator signed the preamble as a gesture of support for the demand to bring civics back to the grades below high school graduation, I'll call a civic strike. And we will get the attention of all the people that deserve to pay attention.
That is a great point.
We'll get it back.
If you do that, I hope you'll come on to tell us how you're spreading that idea.
I'm doing it. People can go to my website, which is thedreyfusinitiative.org, and it's on the website. Sign the preamble.
Done. Richard Dreyfuss, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Well, at long last, former Florida Congresswoman Corrine Brown is being put on trial, facing allegations of massive corruption. They involve a bogus charity group. Brown, a Democrat, represented Northern Florida for 24 years, and during that time, she raised almost $1 million, $800,000, for a charity she created called One Door for Education. According to prosecutors, though, the beneficiaries were not needy students, but instead Congresswoman Brown herself. Brown is accused of skimming off the vast majority of the $800,000 for her own use and then blowing it on preposterous luxuries. A private box at a Washington Redskins football game, shopping sprees in Beverly Hills, a golf tournament in her honor, even a party that featured a $750 birthday cake for her daughter and a decadent cocktail she called the Queen Corrine. It was all a pretty good deal for Corrine Brown until it wasn't. If convicted, the Democrat faces a maximum of 357 years in prison. We'll follow that story. Up next, new scientific study says breastfeeding shouldn't be considered natural because doing so would encourage gender roles. Plus, Fabio became a proud American citizen last year. He now says his adopted state of California has become a mess thanks to liberal policies. He'll be here to tell us how that happened. Stay tuned. Where he defended his early presidential record. Take a look.
In terms of legislation, you're going to see everywhere on Saturday that there was no major legislation passed in the first 100 days. You have a Republican Congress.
You know, that's been wrong. That's really wrong. First of all, we had 28 bills.
Understood.
I was with a reporter the other day who said the same thing. You didn't pass anything. I said, no, we passed 28 bills. And by the way, by tomorrow it could be 32.
You are right, and we have looked at the list. I should have been more specific.
How about
health care reform?
Well, how about this?
Tax reform.
So what do we learn about the president from that interview? Ed Henry joins us now. Hey, Ed.
Tucker, good to see you. The start of this presidency can be summed up by one thing the president uttered today. He said, 100 days is a totally false standard, but nobody has been better at it than me. What is more Trumpian than that? The sheer leadership and brawn of the president declaring most of the media is against him. The Democrats are comically against about everything he proposes and are not being called out for it. And to be fair, his fellow Republicans can't seem to get their act together on health care and basically any other legislation. Yes, they've passed bills, but they haven't actually gotten them to his desk to be signed into law. But the president has ushered out what he called the weak foreign policy of Barack Obama that said, don't cross that red line, and then said, never mind. Gone is the Barack Obama. You didn't build that approach to the economy. This president has wiped out a flurry of regulations and has gotten his hands dirty on Carrier and Ford and General Motors. But he has relied far too much in the early days on executive action, just like Barack Obama. And Republicans in the days ahead, Tucker, are going to have to prove they can govern.
So what are the measures? I mean, there's so much, the news cycle is so accelerated. There's all this stuff coming at people watching television or reading newspapers and magazines. How do you actually keep score?
Look, there are several keys. One is obviously the economy, and that's going to be help determine how his presidency turns out. This week ended with terrible economic growth numbers, but smarter people than me say there are seasonal oddities to that, and it may get better. And let's face it, the markets are bullish on this president, and so is every measure of consumer and corporate confidence. Those numbers are trending good, but what he really needs is tax reform. He has his supporters wondering, where's that tax cut he promised? That's big in the days ahead. Secondly, national security. He's taken a much more aggressive posture on Syria, North Korea, the mother of all bombs against ISIS. So he's talking tough, but he has to be careful about intervention because of that America First platform in the campaign. And finally, I mentioned executive action. Look, one thing that backfired on Barack Obama, he governed by executive fiat. And then this president comes to power and is ripping apart much of the Obama agenda. The way to codify this agenda is to actually work together with Congress. And he has an advantage, you would think, because you have Republicans running the House and Senate. If they don't get together in the days ahead, they're going to be in for a rough 2018 midterm, Tucker.
Yeah, and it could be an ephemeral legacy when it's just written that way. Ed, thanks a lot.
Good to see you.
Well, a new study in the journal Pediatrics describes it as, quote, unethical to call breastfeeding natural, because doing so might undermine feminism. The study says, quote, coupling nature with motherhood can inadvertently support biologically deterministic arguments about the roles of men and women in the family. Kathy Aru is a journalist and publisher of Catalina Magazine, and she joins us now. Kathy, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this was kind of a baffling story. One, that people are inserting politics into breastfeeding, which seems like it would be off limits for politics. But, but two, why it would be controversial to call breastfeeding natural. If breastfeeding is not natural, what is natural?
Well, breastfeeding doesn't come naturally, as pediatricians will tell you. It's not exactly easy. There are lactation specialists out there. There's a whole industry out there. So breastfeeding isn't exactly natural. It doesn't come naturally to women. So what they're saying is, which I'm so happy there's a study out there that are finally letting women not have this guilt trip, that it's okay to hand the formula over to daddy, to the men, and it's natural for a man to feed a baby. So they're saying that only a woman able to feed a child is inappropriate. It's unethical and inappropriate. And I'm so glad that women are let off the hook. Finally.
I mean, it's not unethical or inappropriate, whatever those words mean. I mean, it's the opinion of some physicians that breast milk is superior to formula, and other people disagree, and it's a debate that has raged for quite some time. But what you seem to be saying is it is bad because it suggests that women have a different role in motherhood than men do, but they do because women are the only people biologically capable of bearing children. Is that now a controversial observation?
Well, the study is saying, though, that women are not the only ones who could feed the children. So that's what they're trying to say. It is natural for others to be able to feed the children. So the whole burden is not on the mother. So that's what they're trying to say with this study.
But that's okay. First of all, of course that's true.
Right.
Of course. And
But
that's
women
kind of a
don't understand
decision.
that.
What do you mean? I don't think women are stupid.
Oh, well, there are some women that actually, I interviewed a pediatrician that had a mother that had a child starving for 2 weeks. She was not able to lactate. She was not able to produce breast milk for 2 weeks. The baby had lost weight, and she refused to give that baby formula for fear that her baby was not going to get the perfect breast milk and would have to turn to formula. The baby ended up in the NICU.
That's a totally fair point, and that's a shame when people feel like there's no alternative. Perhaps there are some, but that's not what's really going on here. This is gender politics intruding on the personal decisions that parents make.
Well, we need it,
it's also blurring the lines. It's suggesting, by the way, that men can breastfeed, which I don't think they can.
It's suggesting that men could, well, I don't know, but it's suggesting that...
Well, I do know. The answer is they can't.
So.
I have 4 children, I can tell you.
I don't know your secrets, but no, what they're saying is that men can feed children. They're finally putting a study out there that's saying that breast milk is not the only way to go. There are other ways,
okay,
and other things
Kathy,
are natural.
You're dodging what I'm saying. Look, I strictly speaking, I don't disagree with you.
Thank you.
But the debate is whether breast milk is better or worse than formula. And again, that is a scientific debate that nutritionists and physicians can have. Right. This is feminist groups saying, how dare you suggest that it's better for women to feed babies because that somehow ties them biologically to the act of procreation. And my only point is, feminists, as usual, are helping to obscure biological realities because they don't like them. And that's an attack on science, and I'm against that.
It's a study that's just saying it's inappropriate to say that breast milk is the only natural way to feed a child. A man could naturally feed a child in other ways.
Well, actually, a man can't naturally feed a child. A man can't produce formula.
Love that baby and naturally give it formula. Natural. It's the natural. Loving is natural.
Okay. It's just, can you just take 3 steps back?
No.
And acknowledge that there's something pretty awful about inserting gender politics into something as beautiful and intimate as the first days of a child's life.
You know,
and maybe parents could say, hey, back off.
It's not beautiful. Breastfeeding is not beautiful. Breastfeeding, it causes so many headaches, and it can be so horrible. And as a pediatrician told me, it doesn't come naturally for so many women. So this study, I think, is wonderful because women can finally step back and say, wow, it's okay to hand the bottle and the baby over to dad or my girlfriend or whatever the case may be.
Half of that sentence is correct, of course. It is absolutely okay to do that.
Thanks.
But I'm just wondering, final question for you, because this is giving me a little bit of a headache.
I'm sorry.
No offense to you. No, it's not your fault, but just the whole subject is so crazy. If it's not natural to breastfeed, how did the species get to where it is now? Why didn't we die out several millennia ago?
I think we found other ways like formula to feed the babies. So, years ago,
during the medieval period, where did you get the Similac then?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not quite sure, but this breastfeeding phenomenon has been going on for the last 10 years. But before that, our mothers weren't all exactly into breastfeeding. You had the feminism, the revolution, the 70s. Women did not breastfeed like they do nowadays. So breastfeeding has not always been the answer.
Man, I'm glad my kids are older enough to weigh into this stuff. Kathy, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, the model and actor Fabio says California is becoming an unlivable mess because people support criminals more than they do the police. He joins us in just a minute. Plus, the CEO of United Airlines says his airline mishandled a passenger because the airline forgot they were transporting human beings. Sound bad? It might not be the worst story of the day, actually. We'll have a debate over what is in Top That. Stay tuned.
There you go. Busted his lip.
Oh my God! Look what you did to him! Oh my God!
Time for news reviews tonight. Talking heads regularly complain about how dumb the American population is. Untrue. But if it were the case, you could thank the media for it, at least some of the spread of dumbness. Consider Kamau Bell, host of CNN's documentary series United Shades of America. Yesterday, Bell defended the cancellation of Ann Coulter's speech at UC Berkeley and dropped this remarkable statement. Quote, if your free speech leads to hate speech and it makes people feel unsafe, then universities have the right to protect the kids on campus. That's not about free speech, it's about safety. Actually, Bell is completely wrong. Supreme Court precedents are very clear on the scope of free speech in this country. First of all, there is no hate speech exemption to free speech. Sorry, kids, there isn't, and it never has existed. In Snyder versus Phelps, the court made it clear that public speech can never be punished simply for being offensive. In Legal Services Corp versus Velasquez and many other cases, the court has ruled that government entities cannot treat speakers differently simply because of their viewpoints. So if Berkeley is willing to host left-wing speakers without any problems, then it must allow conservative speakers as well, regardless of what threats are made by violent agitators against those speakers. This is completely unambiguous. It is not a matter of opinion. It is settled law. It is precedent set by the Supreme Court again and again. But instead of teaching these facts, outlets like CNN are foisting a false storyline on the public and endangering, ironically, the very rights they owe their existence to. And they ought to stop. Well, for decades, California has been the promised land for Europeans hoping to make it big, and many have. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, you name it. Half the continent's moved here and thrived. If you have the look and are hungry for fame, California is the promised land, or was. Fabio is an Italian-born model and actor. He just became a U.S. citizen last year. He's been in this country for a long time, in this state, particularly California, but he says it's becoming unlivable thanks to liberal policies, in particular the failure to support the police. Fabio joins us tonight. Fabio, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for having me. Yes, California, you know, is a mess. You know, it's like coming from Europe. I already saw this movie before. So, you know, instead to take the sides of the law enforcement, you know, Governor Jerry Brown took the sides of the criminal. And, you know, and he's the champion of Proposition 57. He went on TV and talked about then he's going to release some, you know, non-violent criminals because California has no money and cost about $100 million to keep these people in jail. So the only problem, he lied to people. He sold people on lies. He told the people this criminal, they were non-violent. Oh, it's just people, they got arrested for a bag of marijuana, no big deal. No, actually, you know, there is much more to the story. If you check Prop 57, the majority of criminals, they are sex offender, child molester, right, human trafficking with sex with minors, and, you know, assault with deadly weapon, you know, the la creme de la creme. You know, and he's releasing all these people back in society. And, you know, and today I'm telling you, it's an epidemic. Everybody's getting burglarized, robbed.
Well, didn't you get burglarized?
Everywhere.
Weren't you a victim of this recently?
One of the many people, Tucker. I mean, you know, out of my friends, about 14 people got burglarized, robbed, they broke into their cars. I mean, it's an epidemic. And you know, I know, you know, it's like as people, we have to take the law side. We have to stand behind the police, behind the law enforcement, not behind the criminal. I'm sure there is some criminal, they are rehabilitated, you know, but, you know, releasing all these people, you know, what Governor Jerry Brown is going to go on TV and says when he's going to release all this rapist and child molester, what he's going to say to every single woman out there, you know? Oh, you know, don't worry, you know, the guy got raped in jail, now it's, you know, it's a new guy. Or, you know, what is going to say to all those parents that got molested and raped?
No, it's a great question. But here's what I don't understand. So, you know, you're in Los Angeles, you've lived here for a long time, you understand the power of fame, and you know that young people sometimes take their cues from celebrities. Wouldn't it be helpful if celebrities in Los Angeles just said out loud, you know, I support the cops. They're not all evil. They're not all bigots.
Yes,
like,
you know what?
They keep us safe.
No, exactly. And you have, and to tell you, this is not even a political issue. You know, you have, you know, the law enforcement and the people, okay? Majority of the celebrity, they're always talking about being for the people. Well, this is a great occasion to come out and support the people. On one side, you have the law enforcement, and the people. On the other side, you have the criminal. Of course, we have to take the stand with the people, and I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. And
so how long have you been in California?
Oh, I've been in California probably for like I don't know, like 14 years.
Have you seen it change? Has the state changed in the time you've been here?
Big time. You remember Murphy's Laws? It was great. the police had everything under control, right?
Yes.
And 3 strike, you out. Sometimes 4, you're out.
Right.
Now the police is getting people they've been arresting 13 times. And also, you know, I'm telling you, all this burglary going around Los Angeles, these people make so much money, they can bail their partner the next day. So the next day they can be back in business. And people, and you know, and the police, they're totally demoralized. The police, you know, they don't want to, you know, Governor Brown put the police in a really, really bad spot. Number one, because he's the boss and he turned the back on them. Even the DAs, you know, they brought a lawsuit against Prop 57. And I mean, I have a quote from Jerry Brown. And he said, it's perplexing why the DAs would deny the people of California the right to vote on this important public safety measure. Okay.
So letting criminals out of prison is now a public safety measure. It's Orwellian.
Exactly. Tucker, I am perplexed at the way the governor of California is thinking. I mean,
well, can I make one prediction since we're out of time? Maybe like a lot of Californians, you'll be living in Wyoming at some point. I've noticed that trend somehow. Fabio, it is great to see you tonight. Good luck here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Up next, student activists are going on a hunger strike at Yale University, but there's a twist, an Ivy League twist. They're actually allowed to eat when they get hungry. But it's a hunger strike. It's a non-hunger strike. Could that be the lamest story of the day? Our Top That panel will debate it. Stay tuned.